She thought stealing my dream job would make me disappear. But little did she know, I was quietly building something bigger, something that would shake her world. And when the lights finally turned on, the spotlight wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more powerful stories. The air inside the glass tower of Silver & Co., one of the city's most prestigious marketing firms, always carried an intoxicating blend of ambition and cutthroat competition. I had spent years climbing my way up there, late nights with coffee stains on my desk, presentations polished until dawn, endless sacrifices of weekends and relationships. The creative director position had just opened a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the kind of role people built their entire careers around. And I was ready. Everyone knew it. My portfolio was strong, my ideas innovative, and my results had turned floundering clients into success stories. Then came her dot Maya, girl who had once been my closest colleague, the one I trusted, the one I trained when she was still fumbling through pitch decks. We had laughed over cheap takeout in the break room, shared secrets about office politics, even whispered about our dreams. I believed she was loyal like a sister in a corporate jungle, but dreams die in silence. The day the promotion was announced, the boardroom erupted in applause, not for me, but for her. Maya in her crisp white suit, standing with that confident, fake smile. She shook hands, accepted congratulations, and cast me a glance that lingered a second too long, a smirk hidden behind her lips. I stood frozen. My name should have been on that letter. But as I later discovered, Maya had stolen more than just a title. She had taken my ideas, my strategies, and even the concept I had been developing in secret for the firm's biggest client. She had presented them as her own dot. My chest burned with betrayal. I wanted to confront her, scream, tear the glossy facade from her face in front of everyone. But instead, I swallowed the fury. I smiled politely, clapped my hands with the rest, and let the rage settle deep inside me. That was the day I made a decision. If she wanted the spotlight so badly, then I'd make sure she drowned in it. I began observing her quietly. Every move she made as creative director, every client meeting, every speech she rehearsed. Maya was clever, but cleverness without backbone crumbles under pressure. And I knew her weakness better than anyone. She thrived only when she had someone else to lean on, someone else's brilliance to polish and parade. Without me, she was unsteady. Late one evening, I found myself scrolling through old shared documents. Proof of my original ideas, timestamps, emails we had exchanged. The evidence of her theft was everywhere. It just wasn't dramatic enough to expose yet. No, I needed something more powerful, something that would not only prove her lies, but also turn the crowd against her dot. So I began laying the groundwork. I volunteered to stay close, acting as though the betrayal hadn't broken me. I congratulated her when we crossed paths, offered to help when her workload seemed overwhelming. I became the shadow at her side again, silent, invisible, underestimated. And she, blinded by arrogance, welcomed me back without hesitation. Behind the scenes, I was working on something bigger, an independent project. A campaign idea unlike anything the firm had seen before, bold, risky, revolutionary. I poured my sleepless nights into it, sketching storyboards, writing scripts, building connections with industry contacts who trusted me more than her. While Maya shined under the company's lights, I was building my own stage. One night, as I walked past the office window, I caught her inside laughing with executives, soaking up praise that wasn't hers. I stood there in the dark street, my reflection in the glass merging with hers, and whispered to myself, "Enjoy it while it lasts, Maya, because soon you'll wish you never stole from me." The glow of Maya's promotion started to dim faster than anyone expected Dot at first. She thrived on the applause. She strutted into meetings, her heels clicking like a declaration of power. She wore confidence like perfume, loud, intoxicating, but fleeting. And beneath it all, I could already see the cracks forming. Her first major client pitch was a disaster. She stammered through slides, her rehearsed lines tumbling like glass shattering against marble. The executives leaned back, unimpressed, while Maya's smile faltered. I sat quietly in the corner, her assistant, watching her carefully steal glances at me, hoping for rescue, but I didn't move. That night, she pulled me aside, frustration dripping from her words. "Why didn't you jump in?" She snapped. "You knew the client's background better than anyone?" I raised an eyebrow. "I thought you wanted the spotlight, Maya. Wouldn't want to outshine you." She glared, but didn't answer. The next few weeks revealed more of her desperation. She stayed late, rifling through old campaign notes mine. She cornered me with subtle questions, disguised as casual chats, fishing for strategies. And every time I gave her just enough rope to hang herself with. Half-truths, incomplete advice, harmless ideas that seemed brilliant until they fell flat in execution. Meanwhile, whispers began spreading around the office. "She doesn't seem as sharp as we thought. Wasn't that idea recycled?" "She's struggling, isn't she?" Exactly what I wanted, but my plan wasn't just to watch her stumble. I needed something grander, something undeniable. A moment when the world would see her for what she truly was. That moment was coming. It arrived in the form of an industry event, the National Marketing Summit, the biggest platform of the year. Silver & Co. had been invited to present as one of the leading firms. Mia was chosen to headline the keynote, a chance to cement her reputation as a rising star. She strutted into the office that morning, beaming. "This is it," she declared. "The moment we make history." I smiled. Yes, Maya, history. What she didn't know was that I had been working in the shadows, networking with event organizers, whispering in the right ears. My independent campaign, the one I had been crafting for months, had found its way onto the summit's program too, under a different sponsor who valued fresh voices outside the corporate machine. Maya thought the stage belonged only to her, but she was about to share it with me. The night before the event, I stayed late at the office. As I walked past her desk, I saw her final presentation notes, rushed, repetitive, weak. She was banking everything on charm and smoke, but smoke clears fast under bright lights. I leaned against her chair, staring at the papers, and whispered, "Tomorrow, Maya, the spotlight will burn you alive." I tucked my USB drive into my bag containing the campaign that would turn heads, ignite applause, and steal everything she thought she had earned. The pieces were all in place. The curtain was about to rise. The grand hall glittered with golden chandeliers and velvet curtains, filled with the sharp scent of fresh polish and ambition. Every major player in the industry was present: CEOs, investors, journalists, and rising talents. It wasn't just a stage. It was a battlefield where reputations were made or destroyed. Maya stood backstage, shoulders squared, wrapped in a navy power suit. She radiated confidence, at least on the surface. But I noticed the tremor in her hands as she flipped through cue cards. "Wish me luck," she said with a tight smile. I leaned closer, whispering just loud enough for her to hear over the applause that welcomed the previous speaker. "Luck only helps if you're ready for the spotlight." Her jaw tightened. She stepped out into the blinding lights, applause greeting her like a crown. Cameras flashed. A massive screen behind her projected her face to the thousands seated. She began smoothly, her voice polished, but soon the cracks widened. Her statistics were outdated. Her examples lacked originality. Investors shifted uncomfortably. A few whispered to one another, brows furrowed. Maya noticed, and her rhythm faltered. She stumbled over her words, her rehearsed charm unraveling like a loose thread. I stood in the shadows, watching. She had stolen my dream job, but she couldn't hold it. She wasn't strong enough. Then it was my turn. When they introduced me as the guest speaker for an independent campaign presentation, Maya's eyes widened. Her confidence shattered, replaced by a flicker of panic. She hadn't expected me here. Not like this. I walked onto the stage, calm, deliberate. The lights felt warm, but instead of burning me, they ignited me. My campaign wasn't flashy, it was raw, authentic, and built on months of sweat and sacrifice. I spoke with conviction, my words threading into the audience's minds like music. Every slide struck with precision, every story resonated. By the time I finished, the applause was thunderous. People were on their feet. My spotlight wasn't just bright, it was blinding. And Maya? She sat frozen in the front row, her own light dimming by the second. The summit ended with reporters swarming me. Flashes lit up the hall as microphones were thrust toward my face. Where did this idea come from? Are you open to partnerships? Can we feature your story in tomorrow's paper? I answered with poise, each word carefully measured. But my eyes occasionally darted toward Maya. She lingered in the corner, trying to disappear into the shadows she once claimed as her own. Back at the office the next day, whispers filled the air. Did you see the headlines? She was supposed to be the star, but did you watch her crash? And her assistant? My God, that presentation legendary. Every compliment for me was a dagger in her back. Every laugh at her expense was fuel for my revenge. In meetings, colleagues now turned to me for insight. Executives stopped by my desk, casually probing for ideas. I wasn't just the assistant anymore, I was the name people remembered from the summit. Maya tried to recover. She wore brighter clothes, louder smiles, but desperation clung to her like perfume. One evening, as most people had left, she cornered me in the break room. You planned this, she hissed, eyes burning with fury. You set me up to fail. I stirred my coffee slowly, letting silence torment her before replying. No, Maya, you failed all on your own. I just made sure people noticed. Her lip trembled, but she forced a smirk. Don't get too comfortable. This company still values me. You'll always be the shadow. I leaned in, lowering my voice to a whisper only she could hear. Shadows disappear when the lights are too bright. And right now, Maya, I am the light. Her mask cracked for the first time. And that was when I knew this war had only just begun. The weeks after the summit were surreal. My inbox overflowed with opportunities, podcasts wanted interviews, and even senior managers were suddenly treating me like an equal. But where I rose, Maya's downfall became clearer every day. At first, she tried to ignore it. She strutted through the halls with her usual arrogance, forcing smiles, pretending nothing had changed. But whispers followed her. People noticed her mistakes, her lack of originality. And no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't silence the comparisons. One Monday morning, I entered the office to find a chill in the air. Something was wrong. A few coworkers avoided my gaze, whispering behind their coffee cups. Then my manager, Mr. Reynolds, called me into his office, closed the door. He said grimly, I did. My chest tightened. He slid a printed email across the desk. My name was in bold. Accusations jumped out: plagiarism, idea theft, manipulation. Allegedly, I had stolen key parts of Maya's campaign, presenting them as my own. I froze. This isn't true. Reynolds frowned. I want to believe you, but these claims, they're detailed. If this gets out, it could ruin your career before it even starts. I picked up the email, scanning every line. My pulse hammered in my ears. The evidence looked convincing: documents, timestamps, even a manipulated version of my own files. Maya's fingerprints were all over it. She was striking back. When I left the office, she was leaning casually against the wall, sipping her latte. Tough meeting? She asked sweetly. I glared. You did this? Her smile widened. Prove it. For the first time, fear crept into me. She wasn't just a rival, she was dangerous. The following days were torture. My colleagues' stares shifted from admiration to suspicion. Whispers became louder. A few allies distanced themselves, not wanting to get caught in the storm. Maya, meanwhile, thrived in the chaos she'd created. She paraded around with renewed confidence, feeding off my isolation. In meetings, she dropped subtle jabs. Of course, originality is key, something we should all strive for. Not everyone can handle pressure without shortcuts. The room would chuckle, half-hearted, but the damage was done. One evening, I stayed late at the office, determined to find proof. My computer screen glowed in the dim room as I scrolled through files, hunting for discrepancies. And then I found it. A corrupted file in the system logs. One that had been altered the exact day Maya's evidence appeared. I restored fragments. The metadata screamed the truth. She had tampered with my documents. She had forged her case. My hands trembled as I saved the evidence. Relief washed over me, quickly replaced by anger. She thought she could erase me with lies, but she didn't know the storm I was ready to unleash. As I left the building that night, the city lights stretched across the skyline, glowing like silent witnesses. Maya had started this war, but I was going to finish it. I whispered to myself, "You wanted to play dirty, Maya? Fine, let's play." I held the corrupted file like a loaded gun. The metadata, the timestamps, the weird hash changes, they all pointed to one thing: deliberate tampering. Someone had taken the time to alter the digital trail to make my original work look forged. The way it had been inserted into the server, the convenient proof against me, it was too neat, too tidy, too personal. That night I didn't sleep. I printed everything: the restored fragments, logs from the IT team, email headers, version histories. I labeled each page with a calm hand. Paper has its own kind of authority. Screens can be dismissed as hacked or glitched. Paper sits there, patient. Paper demands an answer. Morning came and I walked into Mr. Reynolds' office without waiting for a summons. He looked up, surprised, and then, when he saw the stack of documents in my hands, his face shifted from cautious to curious. "You wanted to talk?" he asked. "I did," I said, setting the folder on his desk. "I found proof, not claims. Proof that those accusations were fabricated." He opened the first page and began to read. His eyes moved faster as the paper revealed the trail, the corrupted file, the reintegrated content that matched my private drafts. Server logs showing an account accessing the files at odd hours when I had been at home, asleep. He frowned and flipped through the rest. "This looks serious," he muttered. "Then do something serious," I said. "Call IT, call HR. Don't let this rot in a drawer, because someone's reputation matters more than the truth." He made the calls right there. The IT had arrived, dark circles under his eyes. And within an hour, he confirmed everything I'd suspected. The tampering was deliberate, and the access came from an account traced back to a computer in Maya's department. There were weird proxy hops, but the signatures were there. Word spread quickly through the office. But this time the whispers weren't laced with doubt about me. They carried concern about Maya. People started to remember the small things, the way she hovered over other people's work, the late nights alone at her desk, the odd pleasure she took when someone else tripped out. HR called a meeting. Maya was asked to step in. She arrived with a practiced calm that had become her shield. I watched her from the back of the room as they presented the findings. Her hands tightened around the water glass, a tiny tremor betraying her. "Maya," the HR director said, measured, "we have evidence the files in question were altered. We need your account of how access occurred." The story she spun was familiar: confusion, a fog of memory, an argument with a vendor, perhaps a misclick, but the data was precise. There was nowhere for doubt to hide. Finally, she broke. It wasn't that dramatic theatrical confession you see in movies. It was a slow deflation, the space where bravado had been. I needed that promotion, she admitted, voice raw. I thought if I could get the pitch to land, everything would fall into place. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I didn't plan this. I only wanted to be seen. People looked at her then not as a fearsome rival, but as a small, scared woman who had chosen badly. The room's atmosphere changed. Some felt pity. A few felt anger. But whatever the reaction, the company couldn't ignore the breach of trust. The consequences were immediate and formal. Maya was suspended pending a full investigation. Legal counsel was brought in. The firm issued a quiet statement about an internal review. The press hadn't caught wind yet, because this was handled in-house with a careful, professional calm that made the whole episode feel clinical rather than catastrophic. After the meeting, as people trickled out, Mr. Reynolds found me. "You did the right thing," he said. "You brought facts, not drama." That made all the difference. I nodded, but my relief was complicated. I had wanted her downfall, that was true, but I hadn't wanted it to be cruel. Seeing her unmasked, hearing her brittle confession, made the victory taste complicated. It was justice, yes, but at the cost of a person I had once trusted. Betrayal has a strange way of turning enemy into warning, yet the storm wasn't over. As the internal investigation unfolded, the story reached beyond our building. A journalist I'd quietly spoken to after the summit ran a measured piece the next week, not sensational but honest. It balanced my vindication with questions about corporate culture and the pressure that breeds such desperate decisions. The article named no villain, but the implication was clear. Clients began to call. Some asked for reassurance. Others quietly shifted meetings to discuss future work. Investors probed. The firm's PR team started damage control protocols. The name Maya had once paraded like a badge became a problem to mitigate. In the weeks that followed, the company issued an apology to me. Not theatrical, but sincere. They restored my credit as the architect of the original campaign. They offered an executive role that recognized my work properly, but I hesitated. It wasn't just about a title. I had built something in the shadows, my reputation. A circle of allies, my own small but powerful presence in the industry. Returning to a place where I'd been both betrayed and honored felt strange. So I did something different. I asked for time. I asked to rebuild on my terms. That choice surprised Mr. Reynolds, the board, even my closest allies. But in my heart, it felt right. The fight had never been only about taking back what was stolen. It was about choosing what to make of the pieces left behind. The months that followed felt like watching a city heal after an earthquake. The cracks remained, sure. You could still see where the damage had been, but new structures emerged. Stronger foundations poured where rot used to be. Maya's suspension lengthened in determination. The legal outcome was painful for her. Reputational damage. A stain that would shadow future opportunities, and a long reckoning with the choices she'd made. I didn't gloat. Briefly, I felt sorrow for the person she had become. Then I let it go. The thing about real power is that it doesn't demand cruelty to prove itself. As for me, I took the time I'd asked for. I sat with people I respected, considered offers, and really listened to what I wanted next. The promotion I'd earned at Silver & Co. was tempting. The security, the title, the return to the theater where I'd first altered the course of my life. But the betrayal had taught me something clearer than any number of meetings could. Authority without integrity is a fragile throne. So I did something that felt like reclaiming my own script. I declined the full-time C-suite offer and instead negotiated an arrangement I had drafted carefully. A strategic partnership with Silver & Co. that allowed me to lead my vision with autonomy. keep a percentage of the campaign rights I had conceived, and consult across other brands. They got to say they had restored my role, but I kept the freedom to choose how I would use it simultaneously. I accepted a speaking tour from the summit organizers, a series of panels and leadership forums where I could shape the conversation about ethics, ownership, and mentorship in creative industries. I spoke bluntly on those stages, not about revenge, but about the structures that push people into desperate choices. I talked about the importance of building cultures where ideas are credited and people's contributions are visible. The talks resonated. They opened doors to mentorship programs and collaborations I'd only dreamed of before my small, tight-knit team grew. Anna, who had trusted me enough to hand over the flash drive in the cafe, joined as my creative operations lead. The colleagues who had stuck by me through whispers and rumors took seats of leadership in our new endeavors. We built not out of spite, but out of a shared hunger for integrity. People started to call me not the assistant who made it, nor merely the woman who exposed a scandal, but something steadier, a leader who rebuilt from ashes. It sounded grand, but I felt none of its pomp. I felt grounded. I felt repaired. One late afternoon, months into rebuilding, I walked by the old office window. Inside, I watched a new junior pitching an idea, bright, raw, unpolished. She reminded me of someone I used to be. I stood there and smiled, not because I wanted the spotlight again, but because I wanted her to have one she had earned. That evening, as the city lights blinked on and the air cooled, I stood on my balcony with a cup of tea. My phone buzzed, another invitation, another partnership. A text came from Anna, big meeting tomorrow. We're ready. I looked out over the skyline, the same skyline that had watched me fall, then rise. I breathed in, the night tasting like possibility. It had been a brutal season, betrayal, sabotage, the ugly grit of survival. But the story hadn't ended in a courtroom or a memo. It ended in a quiet, steady reclamation of self. Maya had wanted the spotlight to define her. She shelved other people's brilliance to create the illusion. I discovered that a real spotlight doesn't need to be stolen. It's earned by staying true to your work, by lifting others as you rise, and by refusing to let someone else's failure dictate your worth. I placed my cup down, and for the first time since that promotion was announced, I felt free, not because I had taken something from her, but because I had built something of my own. Then I opened my laptop and started a new deck. The next campaign would be bigger, kinder, and sharper. The industry would remember the summit, yes, but it would also remember how one woman turned betrayal into a blueprint for stronger leadership. And when people asked how I came back stronger than ever, I'd tell them simply, I never stopped doing the work. I let the truth do the rest. The lights outside blinked and held steady. Inside, my light was steady too, a quiet glow that didn't need to scorch others to be seen. I took a sip of tea, smiled softly, and closed my laptop. The spotlight was finally wholly mine.